then the Shen Yanda Banzo Sanjay Bada Shasun. The Varesha Banji then came back you want to follow you one number. Padam Menanje Demba Sanjay then the video. Shaja Tubala Chats and no children. Demba Jim then the Shen Rajan Bayanda. Zoga Sanjay Bada Shasun Demba. The Varesha. Jidin Jamba Jivon de Kano Java, Lana Meva, Sanjay Jim then the video was Shaja Tubala. Should I just Damba, Jim then the Shen Rajan Bayanda. Zoga Sanjay Bada Shasun Demba. The Varesha Jidin Jamba Jivon de Kano Java, Lana Meva, Fada Menanje, Sanjay Jim. Bejawa Shaja Tubala Chasa, should I just Kanjakanyan so gentlemen say Sergeant and Commander. One incident and a church to take care of Namagunga to Susan, Yishija to say, Taman Jedensum Namam, Gumbochoni Jamaza, Senja Damatim, Davish, Sendo Dawajamaza, the regional Sebasuma, Yame, Chenja Jamaza, Gumbotuji, and Batamji, the Mob, Solomon, the Shishala Zemo Taben, the Sacha, giving us on the beach. Chidder Delum Chojo was in your journal, the trainer, the Lama Dama, Shingatama, and the Gindalanya Charles, the Wajian, the Session, the Wapus of the youngest in the use of the tenors on Jet. Kamara, Rima, Mela, you must have sugar, Melam Nota, Genda. The Shishan, the Rada, Solomon, Tom Jesse, you go on to the Junior.
To the teacher, the blessed one, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the sheltered land, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the sheltered land, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the sheltered land, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When the supreme of humans you appointed to serve, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise then I prostrate. With the pure body's form supremely pure, wisdom motion like golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean. To you, the one gone to thusness, I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the low realms, the one path, the sublime, pure reality. To that Dharma which pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and most show the path to liberation, the holy few qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts. To you, the sublime community attending virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may essential beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from motion of suffering, of aging, sickness, and death.
Sanje Jono Zoje Jono no Chaju Bado Dane Jazu Dagi Jazoje Sonam Je Rola Penja Sanje Drubush Sanje Jono Zoje Jono no Chaju Bado Dane Jazu Dagi Jazoje Sonam Je Rola Penja Sanje Drubush Sanje Jono Zoje Jono no Chaju Bado Dane Jazu Dagi Jazoje Sonam Je Rola Penja Sanje Drubush Sanje Jono Zoje Jono Chaju Bado Dane Jazu Dagi Jazoje Sonam Je Rola Penja Sanje Drubush
I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I created by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I created by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I created by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Yeah, so page 407, presenting that point by way of summary. That's right? Presenting that point by way of summary. So in itself, the son of the barren woman has no arising, either in reality or in the context of the everyday world. Likewise, all things do not arise in and of themselves, either through arise their essence or in terms of everyday world. So I think that's pointing out that, emptiness, when we talk about emptiness, what is really emptying or the negating, we are simply negating only one thing, that is intrinsic property. Other than that, we are not negating or refuting any conventional reality. So, so therefore, the Buddha declared that all phenomena are primordially tranquil, right?
and devoid of arising, and they transcend the bond of sorrow, bonds of sorrow. These things have no arising at any time. This thing means intrinsic property or inherent existence. So that is, so that absence. Now, the first we're saying that first line or stanza saying that, we are only the one thing that we are refuting is intrinsic property or inherent or independent or by nature or in and of itself. So this is what we are refuting. And the second declare that says, that absence is not made up or it is not conditioned. The emptiness, the empty of intrinsic existence is not just after Buddha, when the Buddha discovered, then things have become empty of intrinsic existence. It is not like that. It's primordially, how's that? Tranquil. So sometimes they're primordially tranquil, or sometimes quiescent from the beginning. From the beginning, it is absence. No one has created this. No one has made this. It's by nature. Everything is, right from the beginning, it is absence of intrinsic existence. Now, this was saying emptiness is before, absence of intrinsic existence is before the Buddha, during the Buddha, after the Buddha. Even from the beginning, it is absence of intrinsic existence. So now the questions. Question here: why in your systems do you not first perceive form and so forth as arising by virtue of intrinsic nature on the conventional level, then negated on the ultimate level? So now the question which the question that asked by someone who really thinks that the ultimate truth in the conventional truth is true like an apple and orange. And now he is saying that, if you want to establish the emptiness, first you have to understand that conventionals are intrinsically exist. And it does not exist in the ultimate level. Anyway, ultimately, intrinsic existence is not there, but conventionally, intrinsic existing is possible. So, the one who is asked this question has them in their mind. They think conventional and ultimate truth are two independent characters. So that's why they ask, why in your system do not first perceive form and so forth as arising by virtue of intrinsic nature on the conventional level, and then negate it on the ultimate level? So reply here, just as in itself the son of the barren woman has no arising. So because previously mentioned that even the Buddhas, that absence is a primordially tranquil, or primordially it is absence. It is not like conventionally it exists and ultimately not exist. So either in reality, a reality with ultimate reality, or in the context of the convention of the everyday world. Likewise, all things, form and so on, do not arise and do not arise in and of themselves, either through essence or in terms of the everyday world. So what we are negating is something that is impossible, so not exist at all, not in the conventional, not in the ultimate. So given what is the stated here, it is not at all the case that Madhyamika defines the conventional existence as the existence from erroneous perspective that apprehends things arising through their essence. We should also note that what is to be negated is explicitly qualified here. So with proviso, right? Proviso. So which means is specifically it is defined. This is what we are negating. We are negating intrinsic property, inherent natures. Things that exist in and of itself. That part we are negating because this has never existed. And then the question is, if this has never existed, why do you need to negate? So because your misconceptions constantly grasping and apprehending these characters. That's why it is ignorance. Ignorance is something actively grasping on something never exists. So ignorance, not just not knowing, is actively grasping on the character which has never existed. Arising through their essence, it is from this perspective that Buddha stated that all phenomena are primordially tranquil, right? Free from intrinsic arising, and naturally transcend sorrow. So it kind of like so I think we are. This is like often it mentioned that the ignorance, the way it grasping at the focal objects, is like seeing the snakes in the coil rope, or something that does not exist, like the faring from the snake that which you see or believe you have grasped the snake from the coil rope. So that has never existed. So now it almost like, for example, if you have, for example, this is the samsara, for example, like you see at the corner of your house, there is the coil rope that which is you have perceived it as a snake. And then with that, with that perceptions, with that misconceptions, constantly produce the fear in your mind. So now, if you want to free from that fear, and so only thing that you have to do is proving the coil rope as a rope, no snake. So then it says, so that non-snake, just from the beginning, there's no snake. Yeah, from the beginning, there is never snake, right? So transcends the, here, naturally transcends sorrow, means naturally free from snake is already there from the beginning, but due to the misconceptions, you start believing, perceiving the snake, based on the coil rope. So now nirvana is kind of going to that state of absence of the snake, absence of intrinsic. That absence of intrinsic is right from the beginning, is there with you all the time. Now you simply need to know that very nature, to convince the mind, let the mind settle into that absence of intrinsic existence. So that nature of the house that which has absence of snake is from the beginning is there. So yeah. So what it's really saying is we are the sentient beings, feel uncomfortable or the constant fear from something, and constantly angry, constantly attached, jealous, So the object that you see, constantly seeing it, with that you get angry, attached, jealous, pride. So that the very object is something never exists. So the natures, or the nature of the things has never ever have any intrinsic property, but with your misconceptions, you superimpose on the things intrinsic in existence. So just try to understand the ultimate nature, that right from the beginning, that absence of intrinsic existence, and then reveal that nature and meditate on that nature and settle into that nature is nirvana. That nature of the nirvana, transcend sorrow, is always from the beginning is with you. Any questions? Yeah. So it's like almost like you have no reason to angry, but you're angry. You have no reason to fear, but you fear. But we still think that there's a lot of reason to be angry. There's a lot of reason to be fear. And Buddha says there's no reason. So we say we have reason. So so sentient being is always the reason, a reason to argue with Buddha. So Buddha did not see any reason to be arguing with sentient beings. So yeah, this is stated, for example, in the Cloud of Jewels Sutra. So Dodi Kunjo, Kunjo Tsepa, Cloud of Jewels Sutra. When the will of Dharma was turned, you, O protectors, revealed the truth that phenomena are primordially tranquil, unborn and naturally transcendent of sorrow. Yeah, I think that's quite challenging for for the sentient beings, for the ordinary people. Yeah. Because when Buddha says there is no any absolute cause to make you uncomfortable, but you constantly superimpose there is something there. I think that reminds this. There's a kind of the real. I think something real happened in Tibet. There was one time
I happened to meet with the man in the senior center. He was, before in Tibet, he was a monk. So he confessed that. He says, I did something very bad in Tibet. What did he do is, in the monastery, and almost kind of quite often he, during the debate courtyard, during the debate in the debate courtyard, the monks are debating, and like if debate session maybe ends like 11, he go like 10:30 and climb up the tree and scare the monks. He always makes some kind of noise. And then everybody believes there is a something. Yes. And then says, after many days, he constantly doing that, and everybody start to believing there's a something, the spirit or some ghost. And then later on, without him going there, still noise is there. So many people project, and the one who started also started believing there's something, So this is how, anger, attachments, all the afflictive emotions kind of see there's something. There's something. Because first, the superimpositions, misconceptions as imposes constantly, superimposing on the object. Then all the emotion says, yes, there is something. I have reason to be angry, I have reason to get jealous, right? So so naturally transient of sufferings. The phenomena are primordially tranquil, unborn, naturally transient suffering or sorrow. So the suchness of all phenomena is tranquil because it is the object of gnosis that has been claimed. So that absence of intrinsic existence is the object of the wisdom direct realization emptiness. The reason that is object of such gnosis is because it is the intrinsically unborn, and the reason for this in turn is that were something to exist by virtue of intrinsic nature or an essence, by virtue of essence, it would then possess the arising. But since no such intrinsic nature exists, what can arise? Therefore, nature of the things is beyond sorrow. It is utterly pure, primordially indicate that these phenomena are unborn not only on the stages of yogi's gnosis, prior to this stage, even in the context of everyday worldly convention, these phenomena are unarisen through their own essence. This is what primordial or indicates. It is synonym, right? Synonyms?
Synonym.
Synonym, or like all like this. Yeah, when you sound this, it gives you the sweet taste. For the world first. Continue the root text. Now this is, you understand that. Utterly pure. Nature is always, non-deceptive. It is a pure and absence of intrinsic existence. So that's why Buddha says there is no arising, no disintegration, no coming and going, right? Even the heart sutras, there's no eye, there's no nose, no tongue, So such things as vases do not exist. Vases do not exist in the ultimate reality. yet there exists well-known entity of the world. Since all entities are likewise the same, the consequence they are like barren woman's son is not entailed. So you could say, so the causes and the conditions are functions of the, the color, sound, smell, taste, textures, they are existing, they are functioning, their changes are well known, even in the conventionals. How can you say this is the same as son of barren woman? Now this is kind of, it's a part of the answer. So essentially school says, why do you in your system first accept the intrinsic property in conventional, then you can negate it in ultimate. So here it says, that intrinsic property is never exist. How can I say it's conventional exists and not exist in ultimate? So now this means we accept the vast exists relatively. We accept the house and cause and effect, relation to the cause and effect, all of them exist relatively, because this is what everybody, even in everyday world, sentient beings do realize that, right? So it is changing that sentient beings has experience and they're directly experiencing. So how can we, annihilate that existing of the thing? So therefore, that is not intrinsic property. This is not same as the son of the barren woman. Then the question comes back again, then what do you negate? And say, intrinsically arising, intrinsically existing of the color, intrinsically existing of the sound and smell, that we negate. So the Buddhist essentialist school do not argue that something does not exist on the ultimate level. So the Siddhantika school, Minority school, they are not arguing with Prasangika school, saying that, so how can you say, the color, sound, smell, taste, not ultimately exist? They're not arguing that. How can you? They're arguing, saying that the color, smell, taste, textures we experience, we perceived it. So how can you say this has no intrinsic property? So the argument is because they believe, all the sensual object are they believe they intrinsically exist. They exist, in and of itself. So it would not exist even on the conventional level. So here, do not argue that if something does not exist on the ultimate level, it would not exist even on a conventional level. Something that is, they're arguing, the conventional things are supposed to be intrinsically exist. Prasangika school saying even the conventionals are not, intrinsically exist. Not, it's not talking about the ultimate does not exist. Even in the conventional levels. Why is this so? This is because for them, things such as vases do not exist. in ultimate reality, yet they exist as well as, as well-known entity of the world. So that is, they exist on the conventional level, since all entities are likewise the same. They share the same status. The consequence is that if they do not exist on the ultimate level, they are like barren, barren woman's son is not intel. So Prasangika school saying, color, sound, smell, taste, textures, we are not negating it. We are not saying this is the, son of the barren woman. We accept this to be existing, and the way it exists is relatively. We are not saying, each of those things has some kind of intrinsic property. So now this, and then now an Abhidhamma text, they're saying that, and how do they, like Vibhashika school and Siddhantika school, mind-only school, so what is their understanding of the ultimate and conventional? So this is similar to what is stated in the Treasure of Abhidhamma. So Treasure of Abhidhamma is Vasubandhu's text. If the conceptions of something no longer apply once it has been destroyed or mentally dissected, right, then it exists conventionally, like a vase or like water. Ultimate existing in opposite is the opposite. So now Vibhashika school says, what is the conventional, what is conventional and what is the ultimate? For example, there's just the vase, one vase. This is the identity of the vase is conventional. The nature of the form of the vase, nature of the form is ultimate, because the notion of the vase can be destroyed by smashing the vase, right? But still, how many divide or dissect that form, the notion of form is always remain, even in the particle level, right? So the form is ultimate. Notion of the vase is conventional. So this is Vibhashika school, their understanding of conventional and ultimate. Like water, it says water, the vase is conventional. And the vase is conventional, the form of the vase, form of the vase or the nature of the form in the vase is ultimate truth. So there's still, each things, each object like vase and water and table, consists some kind of intrinsic property. In the mind-only school, Siddhantika school says anything that born from cosmic condition is ultimate. Things that are not born from cosmic conditions, things that are possessed to be existing by the conception, that are conventional. Like imagination of water and water. Water is ultimate because it has its own cosmic condition. And imagination of the water has to be projected by the thought. So it has no come from any cosmic condition. So therefore that is, conventional, and the water itself is ultimate. And the mind-only school says, subject, the consciousness is ultimate, the objects are conventional. So they all try to understand the true truth. In the Prasangika school, nothing has ever existed. intrinsically. Nothing intrinsically arises, nothing intrinsically disintegrates. So the commentary on the Treasure Abhidhamma explains this is in the following, that things whose conceptions no longer apply when it dismantled into its parts has a conventional existence. So things that, that notion of that things. If the table says, when you ask the Vavashika school, is table ultimate truth or conventional? So this is conventional, because just by destroying the top of the table, and the notion of the table disappears, no longer exists. So therefore, it's conventional. So no longer applies when it dismantles into its parts, has conventional existence. Take a vase, for example, when it is smashed into pieces, the conception of the vase no longer remains. Things whose conceptions no longer apply when they are mentally dissected also exist on the conventional level. Take water, for example. So it looks like the Vajrayana school, they understand some kind of, science. They're kind of saying the water can be, notion of the water can be, notion of water can be dismantled by, dissect the conditions that makes the water. I don't know. If we divide it, separated like the hydrogen and oxygens, maybe there's no water, right? So the Vavashika school masters, maybe they have, some kind of understanding. Yeah, so some says that when the jet flies, and we see there's some kind of tail, the white. So that this is the water, because the heat of the jets that goes with the oxygen produce the water. So if we kind of separate them, and then there is no water. So water has to go through combinations, right? So I think this is in the Vavashika school. Take water, for example. When the mind reduces it to other properties, because of materiality and so on, the thought, water no longer applies. Reduce to other properties. Usually we say heat, heat is one of the cause. And that which retains its conceptions even when destroyed, as well as those that has retained their conception, even to reduce other phenomena. So these are ultimately exist. So form, impermanence, the being produced is also products are ultimate. So take matter, for example, here, whether reduced to atoms or when other properties as such tastes are removed, then the conception that is in the nature of matter still applies. Extend this perspective similarly to the aggregates of the feeling and the rest. Feeling, the taste is conventional. Feeling, and maybe color is also conventional in Viveka school. Now the Chandrakirti is saying that it would be illogical for this school to assert that if something does not exist on the ultimate level, it would not exist on the conventional level either. So now Chandrakirti is saying that you really, Viveka school and Siddhantika school, their understanding of the true truth is totally in a different base. So Chandrakirti is saying, true truth is like belongs to the one, like true truth is like two sides of the coin, belongs to one coin. Everything, anything that exists has the character of the ultimate and conventional. So relatively, something to be existing is conventional, and ultimately not exist by itself is ultimate truth. So like the Siddhantika school, imagination of the water and the water is a two different bases. So you are understanding conventional with imaginations and ultimate with water. So two different things. So true truth is, totally two independent, not related. Chandrakirti says true truths are related. So it would not exist on the conventional level either. He is not showing that what these schools identify as the true truth is in accord with the truth that he himself presents. For what these schools defines as a conventional existence invariably, involves what the Madhyamikas understands as the grasping of ultimate existence. So there's how much they say, imaginations, for example, Siddhantika, imagination of water is conventional, is not truly exists. The water is truly exists. Whatever you say, even the imagination of the water you say is a conventional, it's not true. But if so in the Chandrakirti point of view, from the Chandrakirti's perspective, yes, they still, think imagination of water has some kind of intrinsic property. Because imagination of the water is something, different from the water, independent from the water. Means imagination of water exists in and of itself, different from the water. So that, meaning, so that from the Prasanga school point of view, yes, you are still, thinks this is ultimately exist. So got it? I think the point is, if someone says, Solandic school, they kind of realize that, they may not realize the water is not intrinsically exist, not true. They do not realize that water is absence way, truly existence. But they understand imagination of water is not truly exist. If someone says that, and then says, but still they have a notion, they have belief, imagination of water is by itself is different from the water. That, gives you the idea they still have some kind of intrinsic property. Of course, the water is truly existing, ultimate existing. They also see the intrinsic property. They even see the intrinsic property in the imagination of the water. So, like for example, for the Vaibhashika school, is the vase. The vase is conventional. It's not truly exist. What does that mean to the Vaibhashika school? It means by smashing, the vase, destroying in many pieces, the notion of the vase disappears. So now says, the vase, is it intrinsic or inherently exists or not? And then they said, yes, it is inherently exist. It not truly exists from their understanding, but it is inherent or intrinsic because the vase exists in and of itself. I think this is, I think, for example, if someone, so when we watch the movie, according to this movie stories, the script, they're kind of what they say is by memorizing the script. And we still get angry. How can he be so, mean and then, bad? But which means we believe this, what I see is true, right? So, the Vaibhashika school thinks that, although the vase is truly exist, but, it is not, it is not ultimate. It is not ultimate means by, destroying the piece of the vase. If you damage the vase, so the notion of vase will disappear. So it is temporary, So that is called conventional, But still they have, still in the deep in mind, they still think the vase is existing in and of itself. So that's why Chandrakirti is saying that it would be illogical for this school to assert that something does not exist on the ultimate level. It would not exist on the conventional level either. So something that is ultimately not exists, also not existing is conventional, So he is not showing that what this school identifies as the true truth is in accord with truth that he himself present. For what these schools defines as a conventional existence invariably involves what the Madhyamikas understand the grasping at, ultimate existence. There's still, Madhyamikas' point of view, or they still have the ultimate existing or ultimate nature, from the Madhyamika point of view. Yeah, it's almost like, if someone who is, who eats spicy a lot, and then mild spices, he said, oh, there's nothing. There's no spicy at all. And then one who is never had, not like spicy at all, they think it's still spicy. Mm-hmm. So he's not non-spicy, has still a spicy. This is the if someone do not like sweet at all, when they drink milk, they find that there's some sweet, right? So this is what they Tsongkhapa is trying to say.
I don't understand what it says. That understand is grasping it on ultimate existence. So it's grasping at intrinsic existence.
Yeah. So for the here, now saying, for example, there's a Ravashika school as me, the Ravashika school. I said, the vast is not ultimate exist. So this is what I say. I say the words that it is not ultimate. Then we ask why? Because destroying, the vast, smashing the vast, the notion of the vast disappears. That is summary. And then Prasangika school says, do you still think vast really exists in and of itself? And this Ravashika school says, yes, it exists in and of itself. But what I'm saying is not ultimate, because by smashing it, destroying it, scatter in the parts, and notion of the vast is no longer exist. This is why it's not ultimate. And then say the Prasangika school says, according to me, you still think the vast is ultimately exists because it exists in and of itself. Existing in and of itself and ultimate existing is synonymous to the Prasangika school. So if we ask someone who's eating a lot of spicy, he start, when this person has tasty, what you call mild spicy, right? Mild spicy. And then if you ask this person, he says, yeah, this is not spicy at all. But we ask, if you give this to someone who is not eating spicy at all, do they, say is it spicy? And he would say yes, because he's not eating spicy at all. Which means he thinks there's some kind of spicy in there, right? But from his the way he find taste of the spicy, this is not there. But he is not denying there's no spicy at all. So similarly, Ravashika school says the vast is not ultimately existing. Say, from my point of view, so my definitions, how I define ultimate is something cannot be destroyed by physically, or something cannot be, even the mentally dissect, the notion will not lost. Is, from my point of view, it is, ultimate. But still, I think that the vast exists in itself. Then the Prasangika school says, for me, it's the same, ultimate existing. So grasping ultimate existence, opponent, now if the four elements, which are the designated basis of the verse and so on. So now again, the essentialist schools saying that if the four elements are the designated basis, so now it's designated basis and the designations. Like for example, this person is designations, So what has designated? And the designated basis is the body, feeling, perceptions are designated basis. The four elements are the designated basis. They think that, since the four elements are the basis for the color, sound, smell, taste, textures, now what they think is, because the four elements is substantial, it is truly exist, and something that is based on the truly existing, So based on the truly existence, you may negate the true existing of the designation, but you cannot deny that the basis are still truly exist. So have substantial reality, whereas and so on have the substantial reality. So there's some kind of intrinsic, it is inherent in. For example, if we ask Rebashika school, what is the person is? Is person inherent in something or not? If the person is inherently exists, it has to be inherent in body, feeling, perception, mental consciousness, something. So then Rebashika school always says, Rebashika school says, the person is inherent in the collection of the five aggregates. Right. So Tsongkhapa school says the person is inherent in continuity of the consciousness. Mind-only school says the person is inherent in mind basis all. So otherwise they cannot understand something to be, to prove the person exists or not. Or you believe, like in non-Buddhist school, the person is totally independent. So the self of the Atma is somewhere there, so it's still using this body, this feeling, these perceptions, but he still remain above the aggregates. When this body dies, that person's still there, So he has to go and buy a new body. So that kind of thing, that's the kind of this person, the opponent is what really motivates them to argue with Prasangika school, saying that, you are saying color, sound, smell, and nothingness truly exists. But for me, all these color, sound, smell, taste sectors are based on four elements. The four elements which is substantial, it is undeniably truly exist. So how can you say this is not inherently exist? So the four elements which are designated basis of the West and so on have substantial reality. It would then be logical to use term like West and so on for there will be a cause or basis for such designations. However, since according to you, the Madhyamika, all phenomena are, all phenomena are designations. So designation means conceptually designated. So conceptually designated means, then this is, how come 4 elements are conceptually designated? 4 elements, they exist by themselves. It's not, human, it's not exist from the human construct. So there is no designated basis that is substantially exist. There is no designated basis that is substantially exist. So the consequence of that phenomena would be akin, to the son of barren women cannot be avoided. Then Siddhantic school, mind-only school, Vibhashika school, they all ganged up with suit, and they says, you are just, you know nothing. So the reply, now in the Chandrakirti reply, this assertion too is untenable. For you cannot prove that the basis of the designations has to be substantially real. So, in the middle, so we said, no, they already said the basis of the, the designated basis or designation are elements. The elements are independent from your thought, independent from your mind. So the Prasangika school, so Chandrakirti is saying, for you, you cannot prove that the basis of the designation has to be substantially real. So for the essentialist schools, yes, it's substantial. I can touch, I can feel, I can smell, I can hear. What else do you need, to prove the substantial? For example, in independence on the, independence, not independent, independence on the coming together of the nominally existing things like a face and so on, a mere construct. Coming together and normally existing things like face and so on, mere construct, and the mirror image is perceived. Yeah? Perceived. Similarly, in dependence on nominally existing the pillar and so on, house is designated. And on the basis of tree, a forest. A forest is imputed, right? A forest, I think it's best is, a forest is imputed. So just as in a dream, one perceives a rising sprout that are actually unborn by nature. Just in a dream, the person perceives the arising of sprout that are actually unborn by nature. It is perfectly logical for the designated bases themselves to exist only in nominally when it comes to all things that are themselves nominally existence. So, so if I'm the in charge in the debate, so I would, I would say it's a break now. because we don't really see that, there is no clear presentations by the Prasangika school to convince the essentialist school. She is just presenting what Prasangika school thinks, So when he used like this, like for example, saying the mirror image is designations, and the gathering of the face in the mirror is also the designations. So how can you say the gathering? So the gathering means the contact of the face in the mirror is the designations. So the essentialist is not a designations. It is physically, you just go in contact with the mirror, and that's how you can see the reflection of the face. So Chandrakirti is saying, that gathering is the designations. Mm-hmm. Therefore, due to the combined contact of the face and the mirror and the reflections, also the creation, the designations. And then the house is the designations. So designated basis, the pillars, walls, the ceilings, the doors, the windows are the designated basis for the designation of the house, right? And sometimes because of the shape, this is the New York's design of house, or this is the Californian design of the house, from the shape you can say. But so now Prasangika school point is the house is the designations, is a designated phenomena, and designated base is the house floor and the wall and the pillar and ceiling. So Prasangika school is saying that if the house is inherent in the designated basis, house has to be inherent with floor or wall or the ceiling or the window or the door, which means you are really thinking that house is existing there within the floor, within the walls, within the ceiling. So then it says, if that is the case, there's a kind of, how I call it. In the consequential, you have to say, if you build one house, within that house, there is at least 5 houses. One house in the floor, one house in the right wall and the left wall, and the ceiling and the windows. There's so many. Sometimes you have too many houses, right? If house is not existing at all, not inherent in the floor, not inherent in the wall, not the window, not the doors, not the ceiling, for you, house not exist at all. So this is why the Prasangika school say, when the house find, there is no way it can intrinsic or inherent in designated basis. Each of the designations, the floor of the house, that is also, designated basis is, one of that designated base is house. House floor is existing, notion of the floor is depending upon house. When the human being exists and human being hand exists. Human being hand is it is the designation, and the designated base is human being. So how can you say only the elements are the designated bases, and the rest are designation, never be a designated base? So that when you say the window or door, so window, the doors, that, designated base is, for sure, it is the house. House is the designated base. and the pillars. And each of the pillars also, if the pillar is designations, designated basis is, designated basis is, the cement, the iron, right? The iron and many things, the water, so many things. These are the designated bases. So that this, the Prasangika school saying, everything is a designation. Everything can be designated base and designations. If the person is designations, designated base are something which is not the person, the body, feeling, perceptions. If the human head is the designation and designated base is human being, so human being become designated base according with relation to the human head as a designations. So nation, if the nation is designations, the peoples, individuals are designated base. Is individuals, national individual is the designation, and the nation is the designated base. Like a country and citizen, if the citizens is a designation, the country is the designated base. If the country is the designation, citizens are the designated base. So, for example, you when they say empty of the space, so the empty is the emphasize, is So if you look for an empty of the space, designated base is the space. Right. So table is impermanent, means table is designations. Impermanent is designated designations. Impermanence of the table is impermanent is the designation. Table is designated base. So there is no once become designations is, it is not the case. It never be a designated base. It's depending on how you really, express, how you emphasize, so which is the destination designatives. So this is why in the Prasangika school there is no substantial, real substantially designated base. There's no substantially designated or designations. So if this Prasangika school with the presentations presented the argument, among the Babashika school, they will laugh. It's not making sense at all because you say a house is, built based on pillars and the walls and ceilings. For us, these are all substantial. How can house not being substantial? Because everything, the base of that house is a substantial. So the Prasangika school says is, it's depending on how you emphasize. So designated is not, always this is always the designated base, which means it is all conceptually imputed in the construct projections. So then the how arising through dependent originations prevent distortions of adhering to extreme views. So now in the Chandrakirti school, dependent originations. So dependent origination is the best or kind of it's a valid reasoning to constitute something is not intrinsically exist. So emptiness proven through dependent originations. So the dependent origination is the best. You can also say things, barley sprout, you can also say barley sprout is not intrinsically arises because it is a form. But if you say barley sprout is not intrinsically arises because it's dependent originations, so that is more it has more power, more, it has more valid than this just by saying it is form. So now the questions, since you Madhyamikas have rejected arising from itself, from something others, from both, from no cause, on the level of both truth. So things not arising by itself and from others, from both, or from without cause, is negated or refuted in both levels, ultimately and conventionally. How then should one ascertain arising in the conventional sense? So how can you think? So when you negate the full possibility of intrinsic arising, full chronologic, by itself, not from others, from both, without cause. Once you negate, refute all of them, how then should one ascertain arising in the conventional levels? So what makes you, see there is a possible arising? Once you reject the full possibilities, such as that of relations and consciousness, karma and consciousness, from ignorance. So that of the sprout from seed, and so on. So by rejecting intrinsic property, by rejecting nothing arises by itself, from other, from both, or from no cause. Is there any part of this, like itself or other, both, or no cause? By rejecting, refuting them, and refuting them, how do you really see it? We are rejecting arising. We simply says there is no such effect arises by itself. That is, you can prove it, and we can say there's no such effect arises from others. That refuted, and there is no such thing arise from both. There's no such thing arise from no cause. Does it, implying that there is no such sprout is arising from the seed? So the Prasangika school says, no sprout arises by itself, no sprout arising from other, no sprout arising from both, no sprout arising from no cause, but sprout arises from the seed. So if you see there's a contradictory, then probably you don't really understand the Prasangika school, point of view of the true truth. If you understand, or this just simply rejecting by itself, that is not possible, and by others also not possible, by both is not possible, by without no cause is approvable, but still you cannot annihilate arising from seed, arising from cause. So now, to this way, this we say, because the entities do not arise from no cause, from cause such as Ishvara, from itself, from other, from both, they arise entirely through dependence. So I think this is the most challenging, part in the Prasangika school. So reject all this, the possibility of intrinsic, but still, they are, maintain the faith in the law and cause and effect. I think you may know that, maybe it's not too difficult to say the sprout is not arise by itself. It's not too difficult, right? So now that sprout is not arising by itself means, yes, it is depending on the seed and soil and many things. Therefore, sprout do not come by itself. So, and the second is more difficult than that first part, because how can you say the sprout is, since sprouts arise from the seed, how can you say it's not coming from other? So now the question is, for example, so for for example, like Tenzi Sherab in the 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Tenzi Sherab at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right? So 3 p.m., 2 p.m. Tenzi Sherab. So 3 p.m. Tenzi Sherab is, if I say, coming from 2 p.m. Tenzi Sherab. Then I says, how can 3 p.m. Tenzi Sherab come from 2 p.m. Tenzi Sherab? Because it was not there. And then I would say, no, the 3 p.m. Tenzi Sherab is not coming from 2 p.m. Tenzi Sherab. 2 p.m. Tenzi Sherab is coming to become 3 p.m. If this is what you see, and then we say, why? Because, 3 p.m. Tenzi Sherab is no different from 2 p.m. Tenzi Sherab. He become 3 p.m. So how is coming from there? So that is the Prasangika school says. The sprout is coming from seed, So seed and sprout is no different. There's no otherness. Right? Seed is now turned into sprout. So if you can say the sprout is coming from seed, why cannot you say seed is coming to the sprout? So if you are comfortable with both, say, oh yeah, maybe it's okay, because seed is become the sprout. So if you can say, then how can you see sprout is coming from other? Where is the notion of other? Where there is different? So I think sometimes it's more easy, to think seed is coming to sprout. There's less, kind of sense that sprout is coming from seed. So this life is going to next life. It's kind of, saying, yeah, he is going to be elephant next life. So, it's a very difficult thing. This myself, in the shadow, is coming from past life. What is that past life? Deer or the whale or shark or something, right? So I have to come from the shark, from the ocean, you know. So the form is kind of, you know, that gives you the otherness, the notion of otherness. So those sprout coming from others is Prasangika school. It perfectly makes sense. And also in the Chandrakirti also says, like, when you plant the seed of, you know, mango, plant the seed of mango, when the mango tree comes from that, and people who plant that seed will say, pointing at the mango tree, they say, I plant this. They don't say, I plant that and this comes. This is I plant. So it means for the ordinary people, they don't have the notion of otherness and the mango tree and their seed. So the mother never say, my baby is coming from others. Right. So now the only, maybe in the Sotadika school, minority school, other than the Prasangika school, all the Buddhist school equally, you know, very, proudly, confidently says, you know, seed and sprout is other. So, in the final point, what makes them think seed and sprout? And then it says, is the time different? Or it says, is, you know, there's the term, the word is different. So this is only they can say this, to say seed and sprouts are different. So in that case, the product, impermanent, is different. Because when we express the product, explicitly express product, not the impermanent. Whatever I express, the product is impermanent. They are no different. Any questions? Yeah, sometimes if I can go to next life, you know, so some say, oh, I can say I can go to next life, but I cannot say I'm coming from past life. So then how about next life? Next life person, because this one is go to there, and why can't you say next life is coming from this life? You know. So the Prasangika school says the idea, the concept of coming from seed, coming from the cause, is conventional. It's relatively we're talking. We're not literally saying this very present is, you know, coming from the past. I think this is the language is one of the reason in the Samkhya school, you know, they think every seed possess their effect. So every seed possess their effect. And then Dharmakirti says, in that case, the delicious, the food in your plate has the waste of that is also in the plate too. So, and he says, what if one ant, the tiny ant, standing on the one grass? So if that ant has a karma to be born in 100 elephants, so do you still consider 100 elephants on that grass? You know. So I think the only reason, the final reason for them to think that it's coming from is that's the word that gives is coming from. Because if coming from there, it was there. Because the language says it's coming from there. So if someone asks you, can you borrow me a butter? And then we ask, do you have milk? And he said, yes. Just get it from there. It was there. Milk is the yogurt, and the butter is in their milk. Usually, why don't you just grab from there? Any questions? All the questions raised. I think the essentialist schools have very difficulty to understand, Prasanghi school. And on the one side, the one hand, they negating or refuting, the intrinsic. On the other hand, they says they have, unshakable, indestructible faith in law and cause and effect. So this is, we don't really understand that, how it's possible. So for them, if you refute any intrinsic property in anything, so which means you are annihilating that thing. The Prasanghi school says no. Is the things existing is I only understand the existing of the thing is a relatively. Other than that, there is no such thing could exist. Relatively existing means nothing has exists by itself. Because relatively something happened. Like for example, when you're standing outside and when there is a sun, the sun hits on your body, relatively there is the shadow. If sun is from the west, relatively shadow is on the east. So it's not the shadow decide where to sit. I want to sit here, I want to stay here on the right side. It's relatively it exists. If sun is in the center, and relatively there's no shadow, or maybe underneath yours, right? Oh yeah, maybe I'll stop here. Chanju Simjo Rinpoche, Majeba Na Jeju, Jeba Nyamba, Meba, Kondo, Perish. Tonya Tawa Rinpoche, Majeba Na Jeju, Jeba Nyamba, Meba, Kondo, Perish. Pama Simjen Tamje, Dada, Denju, Nero Tamje, Tata, Tona. Chanju Simbo, Kana Sushu, Tadabunya, Mono, Juju, Karera, Roko, Sheba, Penda, the woman, the joy. Jereso, Tenzin Jazu, Yeshabe, Sidia, Denju.
May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born or rising, grow, May the born have no decline but increase forevermore. May the precious mind realizing emptiness not yet born horizon grow. May the born have no decline but increase forevermore. Due to all these merits, may all father and mother sentient beings have all happiness, and may all lower realms be empty forever. Wherever there are bodhisattvas, may all their prayers be accomplished immediately.
In
In
the
the
sacred
sacred land surrounded by snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. O powerful Ch16 Tenzin Gyatso, remain in this world until samsara ends.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you.